What's going on? Boys, today we are having a little nothing philosophy chat. I am drinking Monster, tired, reading a literally who philosopher who is so literally who people don't even know his or her name. A Plato adjacent. Just love Plato. And as I was taking notes for this thing, I started writing in my own philosophies and commentaries. Because what's better than one literally who with bad ideas? Another literally who with even worse ideas. So we're going to read some of these off. Chit-chat about them a little bit. So we'll start with something useful from the literally who philosopher. Evil are the swellings, both in body and in diction. Now, out of context, that could mean anything. And when you are reading philosophy, listening to philosophers, or reading anything academic, and you want to make something useful, you take what someone says and work it into your own framework for the way it's most effective, or the way it would be most effective. For instance, people have hijacked Plato's allegory of the cave. That is the best high school philosophy lesson people pull out to sound smart or to make themselves feel learned, and they don't really know what it means. But it doesn't matter, because if enough people think something, that's what it means. That's the mindset you need to be approaching philosophy with. Remove the useful thing from its original context, place it in a more effective context, and use it that way. So, evil are the swellings both in body and in diction. There's a little bit of explanation. Translated, it means, when you're afraid of feeling weak, stupid, vulnerable, or reproachable, you act differently to compensate. You frame yourself as the exact opposite of whatever you are afraid of being. I like evil are the swellings because if something swells up, it'll go away. And once it's gone away, if you haven't solidified who you are or what you think, you're nothing. You're riding swelling to swelling. You have no concreteness. Developing a solid sense of self or a collection of working theories you're invested in keeps you consistent, and consistency is good. It's not evil, it's not a swelling. And I like both in body and in diction because the diction part references pompous speech. When you're afraid of feeling stupid, you try to sound or make yourself sound smarter and smarter. But you end up sounding stupider and stupider. Now that doesn't really matter, but some people will notice it. So if you feel yourself compensating, step back, evaluate why you're feeling that way, then find something in yourself, in the world, in media. Anime and manga are great things to attach yourself to. Focus on those. The concrete. The you. And then you won't compensate and make yourself look stupid, because it doesn't matter for a little while, but eventually it falls apart. Alright, the second thing I wrote is philosophy comes from hearing someone articulate what you've been feeling or thinking, either in a way you haven't been able to put into words, or you haven't heard from someone else, or philosophy comes from someone else solving one of your problems. So, with that one, I've noticed philosophy, or people who like philosophy, isn't about who's right or wrong. It's about you're reading something and hearing something that sounds good and going, yeah, that. Disregarding the context that was originally in, because things we think or read today, they almost never mean the same thing they meant to the people who wrote them. Like one of Shakespeare's famous lines, I forget what it is, but it's like, be true to yourself, or something like that. And what it actually means in context is not be true to yourself, be yourself. It means remember your blood, don't disappoint your family. That tends to be how people read philosophy, not in its original context, but rather in, or as, yeah, this sounds right. I'll take this out of the context and use it for myself. Which is good. That's the way, or that's a productive way to read philosophy, I think. But you're almost never attaching yourself to the writer's original ideas. You are attaching yourself to, or taking, the writer's words out of context, and remembering that is important. It's good, but understanding what's happening is important. Then, on the second part, philosophy is someone else solving one of your problems. The other strain of philosophy type people I've noticed are people who pick up a philosopher and get really into them because they solve one of their problems. It's not about what's right or wrong, or thinking someone is putting into words what you've always been thinking, even though that almost never is the case. But I have a niche problem, and this is a specific solution. I'm glad I have it. I want to share this philosopher with everyone because I want to share this solution with everyone. The point of those 2 points is to understand you are not in a game of who is right and who is wrong. Attaching yourself to this person doesn't make you right. Attaching yourself to that person doesn't make you wrong. You are either a confused pirate or an enthusiastic cultist. Those are 2 great things to be, but knowing what you are you'll save yourself from being blindsided. If you subject yourself to the I am learned rat race, there will always be a more learned acolyte. And when you confront one, or one confronts you rather, your options are contradict yourself or be subjugated. You need to do neither, because you don't need to be in that rat race, because you aren't in that rat race to begin with. Unless you are studying not just philosophy, but the history and etymology associated with that philosophy. Don't subject yourself to it. Learn what you are and roll with that. The third thing I wrote is, provided people buy your facade, and to an extent you can back it up, they'll believe anything you tell them. Now, this doesn't apply to you, of course. The Plato adjacent I'm reading, who is Plato adjacent in ideas, not in time, is referred to as pseudo Longinus. People keep pronouncing his or her name that way. I hope that isn't the actual pronunciation. That sounds like a venereal disease. And it makes me think of Evangelion, which I already have pronunciation combat with people over. The Lance of Longinus. Is that supposed to be the Lance of Longinus? That sounds even worse. Pseudo-Longinus wrote On the Sublime, and the author focuses primarily on what is and isn't sublime. And what isn't sublime is so obtuse and hard to pin down. There are instances and instances and instances of things that are and are not sublime, but there seems to be no way for an author or a writer, an orator, to produce the sublime. And I think that's intentional. On the other end of On the Sublime is passion. And passion seems to be impassioned rhetoric, mixing passion and rhetoric to the greatest effect. And there is actually really good advice. I fucking hate this dude, but there is really good advice in here about how to persuade people better using passion, the way it needs to appear. Or the way your passion needs to appear, the way you need to present your passion, ways to generate real but fake but nonetheless persuasive passion. And I'm reading this and it makes me think of the sort of people who many of them are grifters. People who skate their way into movements, put up a hero type facade, or learned person type facade, or whatever the facade that would suit the situation best thing. Then you see them and you think, this person's full of shit. And you start gently prodding them to see what they're about. And people don't like you for that, because they want to buy the facade, and nothing holds up in your prodding, but they can talk their facade up to people enough. Most people will buy it, not question it. Then, when you're patient, you wait, the movement ends, and as people are fanning out going away, that person's facade drops, and you do the Spider-Man thing, the point. You go, hey, that's what I said you were. And they go, hey, you're right. Or, hey, you're full of shit. But then they move on to the next thing and do the next facade. And Pseudo-Longinus talks about this a little bit. As long as you can back up your facade enough for enough people to buy it, meaning you're selling someone an image, if you can give them just enough to feel like they aren't stupid or they are smart for believing in you, they will eat up whatever you are selling. Now, that has nothing to do with anything, but I wanted to point at it because that's something I've been thinking about for a long time. Philosophy Camp 1, and this dead literally who wrote a manual on how to do it. The bastard. Alright, the next thing I wrote is, no one trait is too valuable or most desired, and lacking one shouldn't concern you. As long as you can accomplish, you're golden. Everything else is secondary or vanity. Choose the end, the result you want, and focus on that end, not the means. you'll save yourself grief and headaches. That one's pretty self-explanatory. I've noticed people tend to get angry or beat themselves up when they can't do something a certain way. They don't just want to do something, they want to look a certain way doing it and feel a certain way doing it. When they can't, they beat themselves up. But you don't need to, and really you shouldn't. And you shouldn't let people judge you for not doing something that certain societally or socially desired way. All that matters is your ability to achieve. And when you can't achieve, your ability to build ways to achieve. As long as you can get results, nothing else matters. While everyone else is trying to look and feel a certain way doing things, you are winning, or finding ways to win. When you're winning, you're a winner. And don't let people beat you up for not looking a certain way. You're better than that. Boys, I believe in you. Don't let people pressure you into doing dumb shit dumb ways when you have the ability to do the best you can and get good results. Fuck them. Fuck all of them. You do you. And the next one I wrote is, hatred and anger are often the same as love. They can flip between each other fast. When I find myself hating something, I stop myself and analyze why. You might find yourself in what you think you hate. With that one, the worst thing you can do when you're feeling a negative emotion is feed it. The moment you feed it, you enter yourself into a negative spiral. You will feel bad and you will do stupid things. The best thing you can do when you feel a negative emotion coming on, especially anger or hate, is think about it. Firstly, stopping to think about it gives you time to cool those emotions off before they take hold. Secondly, when you can rationalize something and try to find something positive in it, it's less likely to control you. You can pirate that negative emotion and turn it into something positive, because hatred and anger really are, they come from the same place as love most of the time. Not always, but pretty often. It's hard to hate something if you don't love it, or could love it, or see good in it. For me, the intensest anger and hatred comes from wasted or spat on, just anything that could be good ruined. So, analyzing it lets you find what's good, take it, and turn it into something better in the future. Always learning from your mistakes. Every bad outcome is a series of lessons you can learn if you want to learn them. And I would recommend learning them because, like I said, feeding the negative emotion creates nothing positive. It doesn't even make you feel good. So, forcing yourself to find those lessons gives you time to cool off, lets you find good things, reminds you to take those lessons into the future, and you can feel good because when you encounter whatever it is again, now you're better prepared to either to fix the problem in a way you like or avoid negative outcomes. So, you feeling something bad coming on, analyze it. Then take it towards something better in the future. The next thing I wrote is, you know how you look at people worrying and fussing about stupid little things? People look at you, your worries, and your insecurities the exact same way. Now, with this one, I've been watching some old gym archives lately, particularly the ones with old Sergen. And something about Sergen is, you can tell when he gets insecure about something because he postures about it and does all these little things trying to compensate for the fact that this little thing bothers him. And people looking in from the outside are thinking and saying, this doesn't matter. And if you weren't so bothered by it, we wouldn't know you were bothered by it. And his bother creates openings for people like Jim to attack him through. Now, you are the exact same way. When something bothers you, and you think it's the worst thing in the world, this is something that should bother you, or it's killing you inside, or something like that, know that other people are looking at you and thinking, that really isn't something worth worrying about, that's okay. If you weren't bothered by it, we wouldn't notice. But now that you are bothered by it, we're going to bother you about it. So, whenever you are fixating on something and stressing over it, like it's the worst thing ever, just imagine looking at a super insecure person who is super insecure about this one thing. This one little thing is the basis of all their insecurities. And you look at it and you think, well, that isn't a big deal. Someone else is looking at you thinking the exact same thing. So, do you really need to be worried about it? Probably not. You will be, because it's a sensitive spot for you, whatever it is. And you're free to worry about it, but you don't need to let it control you, because most people aren't going to even think about it, aren't going even to think about it. Let it bother you because it will bother you, but don't give it power because nobody gives a shit. If you give too much of a shit, other people will notice, and then they will key into it. Just live your life, focus on what's good, and eventually, once you realize you're making a mountain out of a molehill, it'll go away, and you can live your life a little bit happier. The next thing I wrote is college advice for dealing with professors, but it's good for conversation too. When you're asking a question and you'd like a longer or messier answer, ask the single, simple question, then add some extra thoughts/clay to frame the question, or give the person something to work with. For instance, if you want your professor's thoughts on something, don't just ask them, is this or that? Because the answer you'll get is this or that. Give them a little extra, as in, is it this or that? Because I was reading this, and this says this, but that says that, and I'm kind of leaning toward this, but I would appreciate your thoughts. Then they will answer they'll answer the question and give you a messier answer you can sift through. And I like messy answers. I mean, I like hearing people's thought processes. The best way to learn people is to get them to answer questions. And if you make your questions too singular or too simplistic, They'll answer, but they won't reveal any of themselves in answering. The more you give someone, the more they will unravel in a good way. Don't go overboard with it. What was the quote? Don't go overboard with it, because evil are the swellings, both in body and in diction. Don't go talking too much, but don't be too singular with it. The next one I wrote is: never trust friendly, flowery words or quotes kindnesses. People are extending them to you to feel better about themselves, and they're expecting you to repay that debt you now owe them. Trust only the people who are kind and helpful toward you through your intensest and absolute lowest, worst, and injuredest. You remember that Patrice story about prison? If you're hungry, you go without. If you accept a gift from someone, they will expect repayment with interest the next day. People do that with kindness. If you accept something nice from people, even nice words, they are expecting you to repay them that, and then some. This isn't always the case, but if there isn't a reason someone is being nice to you, being charitable toward you, be a little bit suspect. The more independent you can become on every level, the better. And once you are, the more helpful you can be toward the people who do matter, the people who do care about you, the few who do. Those are the people you need to stay out of debt so you can protect. The next one I wrote is: studying literature is a struggle for me because most professors have a point they want you to get, but they'll never tell you what it is, yet they'll reject anything you come up with. That one is not a philosophy as much as it is a comment, really. The next one: studying to generate all sorts of ideas, then evaluating those ideas is most fun and most useful. Caravanning from one idea to the next with someone is fun, interesting, and revealing. Right, so this one comes from a conversation in a course discussion I had a little while ago about teaching. And almost everyone in the course was talking about how hard they want to be on their students, especially students who procrastinate, especially students who maybe get results but not in the way they want. They want to be super hard on them. They want to teach them why they better pay attention in the way they damn well tell them to pay attention. And I was getting angry at that because, to me, firstly, if a student is meeting... I'm speaking from experience here, of course. If a student is meeting course expectations, why would you be mad at them? Are you mad at them because they are not doing it the way you want them to do it? If that's the case, include that in your SLOs, your student learning outcomes. If you don't use petty authority to make people feel like shit. One of the reasons I'm looking forward to becoming a professor is because some professors are interested in generative discussions. Meaning, and this holds true for the best professors I've had, if you can put your brain and your mouth together and say anything, even marginally interesting or useful, And interesting and useful does not mean unique. If you can spit out the most basic idea everyone's heard a million times and be able to talk about it a little bit, have a few reflections on it maybe, that works too. All we're looking for is for you to create... It's just for you to think. A good professor can take a little bit of thinking and turn it into a lot of thinking. You never know where those conversations are going to go, but you can create so much from so little from any sort of student if you're willing to put the work in. Why would you want to abuse authority to shit on someone for not doing things exactly the way you want them to be done? It's frustrating. But, lesson learned from that conversation, the way they want to teach is not the way I want to teach. And I have had professors who teach the way I want to teach. The way they teach is effective, and that's the way I'll be teaching. Golly, we had that ENTP professor I talk about sometimes. He has these short answer quizzes. And they aren't multiple choice. They aren't anything. He asks a super specific question about the literature. And you're sort of expected not to get the answer exactly right. But he always says, if you don't know the answer, just write something. I can't give you credit if you write nothing. And I have seen him, this is when I was friends with that ENTJ dude who fucking hated the ENTP professor for some unknown reason. He walked into a test and said, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know any of these answers. I'm so stressed, I am sure I'm gonna fail this. And then he does it. We come into the next session. The professor's graded, he got a 100. Because the dude tried to give answers he thought was right. And the professor gave him full credit because the dude's answers were interesting. That's all the goal. That's the objective of those tests. They are not to get you to answer questions correctly, they are to get you thinking about the text. If you say anything interesting, if you put in any effort to say anything to demonstrate that you're reading and thinking about it, you get full credit. But no, that professor, one of the best on the campus, has one of the lowest ratings because people hate him because he gives you good grades for just thinking about things. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. And I hate that I say I don't get it like that's some kind of... what is that even supposed to mean? That's like a little gesture, like saying I don't get it twice. That's some stupid gesture that doesn't mean anything. That's not the way I'll be teaching. The way they're teaching, I mean. If you show your students warmth and compassion, give them room to think and to grow, encourage them to think and to grow, everyone will be better off. Why are professors being trained? Not just being trained, but why do they want to abuse students using petty authority? It makes me want to yell. I get heated about teaching because it's one of the few places everything lines up for me. Students, especially freshmen, fresh out of high school, they come into your courses terrified. And they're right to be, because high schools are garbage. They train kids to be scared. And you've been there, and shit, I mean, I use you as the editorial you, but I'm still there, grad school, and you know it's not gonna get any better for them, for the most part. They aren't really there voluntarily. They are getting fucked financially for a degree they probably don't need. Why would you want to treat them like trash? Why would you want to make their lives worse than they already are? I'll never understand it. I will never, ever understand it. You know, you wonder why your students aren't motivated or why they're afraid. Maybe it's because nobody's ever tried to make it fun or interesting for them. Are you going to make it worse? Is that your solution? On that note, the next one is fuck you can't think unless you cite professors. Those are pretty common and they're super difficult to deal with, but thank God they aren't the majority, at least in my experience. In fact, there seems to be like a small civil war going on between you can't think unless you cite professors and create ideas professors. But unfortunately, you can't think unless you cite professors are the ones who tend to teach lower level college courses. So when you get into your bachelor's, not just doing your associates or something, you've learned a mess of bad ideas that better professors now need to unteach you. I understand that's part of the weed out process for some courses, but when all of the higher end professors are, or not all, most all of the higher end professors are saying, who taught you this? Why did they teach you this? Don't do this. There's something wrong in the chain of education, the chain of command. It's all fucky. And on that note as well, where do they think those ideas came from in the first place? Did the person who created the idea need to cite to think? It's like there's no logic to it. Why are you making students cite every single sentence they write when the people they're citing sure as shit didn't? They didn't need to. It's just dumb. It's really dumb. And the next thing I wrote is, what would I think if I were an outsider observing what's happening to me? What would the most opposed outsider observing me think? Consider both answers and adjust accordingly. This one sort of ties back into if other people aren't concerned about your insecurities, let them bother you, the insecurities, but don't let them control you. But this one is a little more focused, a little more hands-off, but kind of hands-on. If you were advising yourself, what advice would you give yourself? Then what would the person who hates you most, have that person in your head constantly? What would that person say about anything you're doing? I don't have any advice for how to adjust according to that advice, but know that it's there, because anyone you meet could be, most people you meet probably will be, that person who hates you most. So if you can figure out what they're thinking, you can prepare for it a little bit and try to avoid that problem. The next one I wrote is a little bit about MBTI and professors. This doesn't hold for everyone, just some trends I've noticed. Feel free to disregard them, don't worry about it. TP professors are most interested in generative conversation. FPs, persuasive, productive conversation. FJs in technical and supported convention. TJs in correct convention. And a quote from one of my favorite professors, who's an ENTP. The academic conversation is self-important horseshit. Which I appreciate, because the academic conversation is self-important horseshit. They try to, in academia, they try to make everything into a conversation. Like, you can't have an idea unless your idea is supported or attacked by another idea, or unless your idea is attacking another idea. So, that's academic paradigm, that's academia for you. I don't want to be a research professor. The era of you have an idea, you research it, you put it out there, and people can think whatever they want about it is dead. I mean, it's dead everywhere, that idea is. People just having ideas. But in academia, it is hammered into your head dead. But I am glad that at least one person is still alive and will still be alive for a little while longer, hopefully, who wrote the book so thoroughly on why that is horseshit. I can be in that glow a little bit. It feels good. Knowing that authority doesn't reach everywhere. Authority doesn't have ultimate control yet. I mean, it does. But people can still have some ideas for a little while. Hopefully. We'll see. I'm going to train my students to have their own ideas. They can come up with whatever ideas they want, as long as they are thinking about them thoroughly and can communicate them well. Fuck the academic conversation. It is horse shit. Self-important horse shit. Next, I wrote some more, but I added 2 notes because this is around the point I realized I could probably turn my marginalia ranting into a video, tell 2 little stories. The first one is called Gunfighter Seats. If I've already told this story before, that's funny. The case is in the point. So, my grandfather told my father the gunfighter seat story. My father told me the gunfighter seat story. And it's not really a story, it's more just a thing that you know for no reason. Gunfighter seats is when you are in a restaurant or you're just anywhere with your vehicle, but you are not in your vehicle. You sit somewhere you can watch your vehicle, so you can see if anyone tries to break in. That's called gunfighter seats. Now, when I was younger, in high school, and I didn't really think about anything I was doing or why I was doing it, I would be annoyed at people for telling me the same stories multiple times. And I was in a restaurant with one of my pals, and I started telling him about gunfighter seats, and he said, "You've told me that story at least 5 times already. Stop telling me about gunfighter seats." And I said, "Yikes. I didn't realize I was doing that." For whatever reason, I just like telling stories I've heard, and I forget I've told them, so I tell them again. And I can see why that's annoying, because that's annoying, or it annoys me when other people do it, so I'm gonna stop doing that. Unfortunately, that son of a bitch did the exact same thing. He was an ESTJ, so same retarded, doing the same shit over and over frequency. So it became an inside joke whenever either of us would start telling a story we'd already heard for the millionth time. We would just say gunfighter seats, and the other one would shut up. So I'm extending that to my boys, because I'm pretty sure I'm doing gunfighter seats shit, or have been, will in the future. if I tell a story I've already told before, humor your aging boomer grandfather and just say gunfighter seats so I can make a mental note never to tell that story again. Because I recognize I'm probably doing it, but I don't have the mental capacity to pay attention to which stories or which anecdotes I tell to which people. Just say gunfighter seats, I will get it. Now, the next note, story I might have already told. Gunfighter my shit up, dude, if I have. Fuck me. First year of college, and I was on a weird frequency then. This was pre-alcohol, but still in transition to sadness mode. So I was doing all this weird shit, like talking to people, confidently, actually. Just walking up to people and speaking with them. Don't know how or why I did. It feels like the stupider you are, and the more unaware you are, the more confident you are, and the more able you are. Anyway, I went up to this dude in one of my courses, and I just started talking to him, because he seemed interesting. I was super into philosophy at the time, and the dude said he read Nietzsche. I hadn't read Nietzsche, but I knew a little bit about Nietzsche, and I wanted to read Nietzsche, so I went up to him and started talking to him about fucking Nietzsche. Tell me what you think about it. Frame it for me. I want to read it. I want to hear it. I want to go into it thinking your thoughts. Because when you're 18, your thoughts are worthless. Everyone else's thoughts, framed as your thoughts, those are the absolute best. So I want to hear your thoughts so I know what to think before I go into this guy I don't know. We became friends for a little while, and he showed me this tattoo he got on his leg. And it was this gigantic cigarette logo tattoo. He entered this promotion. If you get a tattoo of this cigarette brand, it was like suns, some kind of suns or something like that. It had like an Aztec-looking design. They would cover the cost of the tattoo, then give you $2,000 on top of it. And I thought that was interesting, especially considering he was a hardline socialist, anti-capitalist dude, like to his core, like eat the rich, murder their supporters type of guy, and he turned himself into a walking billboard for a cigarette company for money. Don't blame him, because if you need the money, you need the money. Been there, am there. But I tell that story because, one, it's funny, interesting. Two, my favorite people are dregs. And dregs are kind, well-meaning people with glaring flaws. And they own it. those people to me are the most interesting and the most beloved. And at the time, I was the most obnoxiously conservative person on the planet, because when you're 18, what's more edgy and attractive than attaching yourself to a movement that will trample you the moment you are useless to them? Any movement. But we ended up being pretty decent friends until I dropped out. So, people are cool. Look for the weird ones. The nicer they are, the more interesting they are, and the more glaringly flawed they are, the better friends and comrades you'll be. At least in my experience. Alright, moving back into the philosophies, the nothing philosophies, we will try to wrap this up a little quicker. Feeling stupid will incline you toward changing because you're either wrong or missing something. And that one means if you feel stupid, maybe you're wrong about it and maybe you should change your mind. Or, if you feel stupid about it and you aren't wrong, maybe you're going about it wrong. Feeling stupid is a good thing because it will incline you to change, either what you think or what you do. The next, the next one I wrote: when you expect students to cite for every little thing, you are encouraging them not to share their ideas. We already covered that in its entirety. I was really mad about the teaching thing. I was having a hard time letting that one go. Like, I have all these notes. It'll be Longinus, 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 sublime, sublime, sublime. Fuck professors who make you cite everything. Longinus, 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 sublime, sublime, sublime. Something negative with a trying to be positive spin on it. And then straight back into the Longinus, which still sounds like an awful disease. The next one I wrote is, why did I expect my father to laugh? I wouldn't have. When I was a kid, one time I was on the... Someone I met told me you should compliment everyone you meet, even if you don't feel like it. You should try to brighten everyone's day, even if you don't feel like it. So I tried that on my dad one time, and he was very angry, and I told him a joke, and the joke was, what does a robot do in a one-night stand? He nuts and bolts. And I think that joke is really funny. But if I were as angry as my father was at the time, I wouldn't have laughed. And my father didn't laugh because he was angry. I wouldn't have laughed. And I shouldn't have let that bother me as much as it did. I guess the message we can pull out of that one is... we keep talking in this video about try to look at yourself from an outsider perspective. Try to look at social situations from an outside perspective. If something doesn't work, analyze why it didn't work, rather than letting it bother you. You can probably figure out an answer. For me, I wouldn't have laughed. It seals it right there, it's done. I wouldn't have laughed. Why would he have laughed? He was mad. What did I expect? No need to be bothered about it. The next one I wrote is, function beats form every time, and I tend to dislike capital P philosophers because they're so concerned with appearances they end up saying nothing valuable or hiding a point behind loads of useless glitter. That one's self-explanatory. Most things go back to I hate pompous speech. Just pirate and interpret what you like and throw away the rest. Never hurts to know what people are saying, but if you want to learn how to live, build your own philosophy. If you don't, you're probably using the philosophy you're reading incorrectly, or you're just using the most popular conception of it. And even if you were using it perfectly correctly, it's still restrictive in the end. The best philosophies are the ones adaptable. The best philosophers tend not to be capital P philosophers. Alan Watts walks you through many different religions, including Buddhism, tells you why they work, tells you how they work, then tells you to do whatever you think you need to do. Patrice O'Neill tells you what works for him, why it works for him, but encourages you to do whatever you need to do, whatever you want to do, whatever you should do. Because if you try to do what he does, and you're not built for it, you will fail. In the same way, if he tried to do what you were built to do, he would fail. Be adaptable. Be like water. Do what you need to do. Learn what you need to do, then do what you need to do. The next one I wrote is negativity invites and creates negativity. Remember to neutralize or repress your negativity when meeting people to create better interactions. Now, I wrote repress. I don't mean that. What I mean is feel your negativity as long as you need to feel your negativity. Then, when you're ready for positivity, let the negativity go and be positive. Positivity doesn't necessarily breed positivity, but negativity definitely breeds negativity. So you can't have positive when you're negative. When you're ready to let go of your negative, let it go, accentuate the positive. Link that song in the description, it's very good. And the last one I wrote is revenge is pointless. The world will harm people who've harmed you worse than you could ever hope to, and your trying for revenge only sets you back. Focus on yourself and your goals, and let the world do its thing. Now that one's a little bit self-explanatory too, but the world's bad. If someone's hurt you, if the world has, trying to get back at them or it will accomplish nothing. The world is crueler than you could ever be. If you want revenge, let the world do its thing. The world will hurt people no matter what, and it'll hurt them worse than you could even begin to imagine. You don't need to add to it, and even if you tried, you wouldn't be very good at it. So, focus on being better, getting better, being the change you want to see, and don't worry about people who have wronged you or all the ways the world has hurt you. The world is full of incestuous cannibals. They will cannibalize each other. They will brutalize each other. Let it go. What is it, like Schrodinger's cat? They're already doomed. You don't need to worry. Just be your best and you're fine. It'll all work out in the end. Regarding the vengeance thing, at least. Just let it go, boys, and you'll feel a whole lot better. But that about rippity wraps this one up. I hope you enjoyed watching, because I certainly enjoyed making it. Yeah, once I realized I could probably turn my angry spite marginalia into a video, that kept me writing more and kept me focused on the assignment. So I appreciate the motivation. Boys, couldn't have done it without you. Like if you enjoyed, because that helps me out a lot. Subscribe if you haven't, because we do this shit sometimes. And comment your thoughts, because I love hearing from you. This one's a bit broad to ask too many questions. But what is your favorite homebrew philosophy? Your favorite homebrew nothing philosophy you've thought up? How has it served you? What's good about it? Where did it originate? How does it work for you? I'd be interested to hear. But thanks again for watching, everybody, really. We have a lot of fun on this channel, so much fun, in fact, you could fill a plastic Ziploc bag full of it, poke a straw through it, and drink the fun from the bag. That's something I used to do in high school. My family's Filipino. Grandfather's first-gen Filipino immigrant. Gunfighter seats. Something about, I don't know. This is gonna be another gunfighter seats one, because I want to talk about this in a more pointed video. But second generation Filipino people, they are either the white Filipino or the black Filipino. The Filipinos who sided socially with black people, and Filipinos socially who sided with white people. And they hate each other. They want to kill each other. Like, normal US race tensions are really high, really weird, especially when other nations look at us. Filipino people are like the two neighbors on two little islands in the middle of the ocean throwing bombs at each other. They just hate each other. But they both want to be Filipino so bad when they aren't. Because they put their national dish, they put hot dogs in it. So, we all get together at these dumb Filipino rallies that mean absolutely nothing. And you have the tucked in collared shirts with jeans and boots. White people want to be Filipinos. And then you have the dressing like stereotypical black culture Filipinos who really want to be like black people. And there are no other races around. And they just want to kill each other. It's awful. But again, we all want to be Filipino, right? And something to do in the Philippines, at least from the videos we watch about how cultured Filipino people are. Our forefathers, or our distant relatives back on the islands, drink sarsi, which is it's something, out of plastic bags. And I thought, man, that's metal. Drinking shitty soda out of a plastic bag with a straw. That's like some Mad Max shit, dude. I gotta get on that. So that's what I did in high school. For lunch every day, I would take a bag, a can of discount lemon soda, pour it into a plastic bag, and drink it with a straw. And feel proud of my heritage. Feel proud of my heritage. That's how much fun we can have on this channel. And I look forward to doing this with you guys again in the future.